Alors, bonsoir tout le monde.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this regular public meeting of Dieppe City Council this October 24th, 2022. We will start right away with the opening word. Dear colleagues, let's have the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I would just like to remind everybody that the city of Dieppe recognizes that the land on which it operates is part of the unceded traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship that the Mi'kmaq co-developed and signed with the British Crown in the 18th century. The treaties did not deal with the surrender of lands or resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between the parties.
Is part of the unceded traditional ancestral lands of the Mi'kmaq. The peace and friendship treaties that the Mi'kmaq jointly developed and signed with the British Crown in the 19th century apply to this territory. The treaties did not deal with the surrender of land or resources, but in fact recognize the Mi'kmaq title and set out the rules for what was to be a lasting relationship between the parties. Première chose, on a un quorum ce soir.
First point item on the agenda, we have quorum. Are there any conflicts of interest? Did anybody indicate they have a conflict of interest? If not, that brings us to the adoption of the agenda. A motion to adopt, moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Godet on the question. All those in favor will indicate by saying aye. Contrary, nay. The agenda is adopted as presented, which brings us to 7 presentations, inquiries, and petitions. 7.1, inquiries by council members to the Kodiak Regional RCMP. This week, once again, we have Inspector Chantal Arsenault-Farah here this evening. Good evening, Inspector. Good evening, Your Worship, councillors. I just have a few items to keep you up to date. On Friday, October 21st, the tactical drug air group from the province came to the region and they were targeting the modified vehicles for those that are unsafe. In other words, that vehicles that wouldn't pass the motor vehicle inspection, those that have modified mufflers, for example. And during these efforts, they identified 46 vehicles that were escorted to an inspection station. We had a partnership with this station. They were responsible for the inspection, and 19 of them were towed because they were not safe to be on the road. We had a total of 129 tickets issued, 32 for people who weren't wearing their seatbelts, which is really something that I want to underline, that it saves lives. It just takes one click. There were 20 tickets for the use of cell phones while driving. One was driving while impaired, and 2 were driving with a suspended license. So it was a good operation, and just a reminder that keep your vehicles safe to drive. Secondly, this afternoon, I would like to point out that we like to use the radar sporadically, This afternoon, I had a patroller on Amiro Street. It was really to make sure people slowed down. We gave out one ticket and two warnings. Third, now for panhandlers, in October, we contacted 9 people in the Greater Moncton area who were along roads where people were panhandling. And these contacts were made, but it was with there was a mix of education and warnings and tickets. It all depends on the history of repeat offenses. So we're continuing to target that. We do notice an improvement. And the last point, Councillor Godbout, 2 meetings ago, you had asked me to check on the traffic situation on Champlain Street. When you get to Mathieu Martin School, we noticed that the situation has improved since the beginning of the school year. I think people are starting to plan their routes earlier in the morning so they don't get stuck on Champlain. But it still happens occasionally, but it's something that happens to a number of schools as well. The only thing I'd like to tell people is try not to block Champlain Street. If you're in the traffic, if you're trying to turn right into Mathieu Martin and you're coming close, make sure you put your blinkers on to at least indicate that you're slowing down so that other drivers will be aware of your intentions and try to plan ahead to make sure that you don't slow down other traffic on Champlain. And that's all
Merci
for the
beaucoup pour
updates
cette
today. Thank you
mise à jour très détaillée.
for the very
Je vous
detailed
propose
update. It's all very much
question
appreciated.
présentement
Any
dans mon salle.
questions from councillors?
À distance, Monsieur le Maire.
Alors,
Over here, Your Worship.
la première
Yes,
personne
the
qui est
first
Benoît Bourassa,
person,
suivi
so
de
Councillor Godet,
Madame Boudreau,
followed by Councillor
Madame Turgeois
Boudreau,
et
Councillor Turgeon
Conseiller
and
Lantaigne
Councillor
qui est
Lantaigne,
en
who
Zoom.
is here on Zoom.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. J'ai juste une
Thank you, Your
question
Worship.
pour
I have a question
vélo. Les vélos, on a eu un
on
accident grave à Moncton
bicycles. We had a serious
hier.
accident in Moncton last
Certaines
week,
personnes qui ne respectent pas
and
nécessairement
some people
les
don't
vélos et les
respect the 1 meter distance
motocycles. Avez-vous
between
déjà
cars
fait
and cyclists.
des
My
amendes ou
question
donné
is,
d'autres
have
ordres
you
par
ever
rapport à
given
ces vélos?
fines for that? Well, I can't answer right now. I can't tell you how many fines have been given, but yes, there have been fines given for that violation. The But if you were to see that kind of traffic violation, take the license plate number, take the information down and report it, and we will follow up. I know that that's not always ideal because it's not easy in all cases, but if a patroller will see the violation, we can stop the driver. But as a citizen, the second best thing you can do is to report the violation to us right away so that we can follow up with education, first of all, and
Parce que
with
moi, je vois que
fines,
ça roule
secondly,
mal, puis je remarque,
because I do that a lot.
je dirais qu'au moins
And
70
I would
du
notice that
70
about
du stop, mais il y en a
70% of
d'autres
people
stops
do
que
move over, but
c'est
many do not.
dangereux, je trouve.
So
Puis
it's very
les
dangerous.
textages et tout,
And texting as
sur
well.
téléphone, y a-t-il
People are
des
texting on their phone.
chances que les amendes pourraient
Is there a
être
possibility
approchées
of
de façon
raising the fines?
d'Ontario, puis il m'a dit
I
que
know I talked to
c'était
somebody from Ontario who told us that it was $1,000
peut-être
fine
qu'on s'en
for
parle
people who's texting,
à l'époque.
texting and driving. Perhaps we should raise them. Well, that's not something that is of my responsibility. That comes under the act, the provincial act.
C'est peut-être
Thank
quelque
you.
chose à
But it's
considérer
something that we should take into
du côté du
consideration,
conseil municipal
perhaps, at council.
du
Perhaps we should
gouvernement provincial et des
approach the
personnes
provincial government
peut-être
and
discuter
ask
des
them if
statistiques
they
un
have
peu
any
plus correctes
statistics themselves,
euh, en dépit de ce que certaines personnes croient,
and that
data
in
matters.
spite of what certain people think, data
C'est
matters.
important qu'on ait le plus de
So it's
données
important to have the
possible
most data
sur
possible on
ça.
this
Bonne
if they are
question,
available.
Monsieur
That's a
Godin.
good suggestion, Councillor.
Madame Boudreau.
Councillor Boudreau.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Est-ce que vous pouvez élaborer sur
Could you give us more
vous avez parlé des
details?
mendiants qui sont sur des
You talked
bikes,
about
qui sont
panhandlers who
dangereux,
are asking for money along the
Est-ce
roadside.
que vous pouvez élaborer sur les
Could
amendes que
you
vous
talk to
donnez
us
ou
about the
quelles que sont,
fines
donnez les
that you
amendes et
hand out? At
est-ce
what,
que c'est une mesure qui est
when did you do
efficace
that? And
et
is
les
that something that is
alternatives à
efficient? And are
ces
there
genres
alternatives,
d'amendes-là ont probablement
knowing
pas
that these
d'argent pour
people
payer
probably
l'amende
don't have a lot of money
à
to
la
pay a
base?
fine to start?
Ouais, si vous pouvez élaborer
Yes,
là-dessus.
please.
Oui, c'est
Could
une
you
très
give
bonne
us more details?
question.
Yes, that's a very good question.
Nous autres, notre but, là, c'est toujours
Our
l'éducation.
objective
So,
is
c'est quoi
always
la loi qu'on
education.
utilise, là? C'est une
So
infraction au niveau
it's a
je
violation
vais dire en anglais, Motor Vehicle Act
of the Motor
au niveau
Vehicle
de la loi au
Act
Nouveau-Brunswick
in New
qui dit
Brunswick.
que tu peux pas
And
longer le long
the Motor Vehicle Act says you
que ce
cannot
soit pour un
stand
travail quelconque ou
along the
devoir faire quelque
road
chose.
to do
Nous autres, là,
anything, any
c'est ce qu'on veut
activities,
faire, c'est
work or
d'éduquer sur ce
panhandle. It's
comportement-là
dangerous.
parce que
So we want
justement,
to
ça,
prevent
c'est une
that
faute.
behavior because we don't want anybody to be injured.
L'approche qu'on a pris, qu'on a
Now, the
commencé,
approach that
c'était
we have
vraiment
adopted,
d'aller
that
les
we've
voir
started last
directement
summer, first
pour
of
aller
all,
les
is
voir
using
puis changer
education.
ce
We
comportement-là
went to
puis leur
see
dire attention,
people, those who had
les
this
enfants ne
behavior,
peuvent
and
pas
said,
avoir
listen, what
des
you're doing here is
activités
not
assis sur le
legal.
coin de la
It's not
rue,
safe to be on the
chanter
corner of
là-dessus,
Wheeler or
comme
Champlain
Mapleton, comme
or on the
Ville,
corner of
des places
Mapleton.
à risque.
These are very
Les gens
high-risk
aussi sont
areas.
pas comme
And
toujours polis, là,
some
ça peut aggraver
people
les choses.
are
C'est
not
pour ça
always
qu'il
very
faut
polite
vraiment faire
either,
de
can make the
l'éducation puis de
situation worse. So we've done a
l'information.
lot of
C'est
education
quoi ce
trying to
qu'il faut
explain
faire,
that
c'est
you
que là,
cannot do this, it's not safe,
ça
and
passait
it's
à la
not
tâche,
legal.
là, vraiment, là, après
So
ça, une fois que c'était
then
verbal avec tout le
after
monde, là,
that,
c'est tout
after we had
accompagnement.
approached all of them,
C'est
because it's always
quelqu'un
the
qui les
same who
connaisse
come
pas
back,
mal
our
bien.
police
Puis nous autres,
officers
c'est
know
toujours
them
deux
quite well. So
douzaines de
there
personnes.
were
On avait tendance à
maybe
faire ça cet été.
about two
Puis à
dozen people
force
who
de leur
were
parler
doing
puis de
it
les
during the
éduquer, bien sûr,
summer.
de faire ça
But
selon les
after
règles de la
educating
loi,
them, talking them,
ça a quasiment
explaining
doublé
to
cet
them that
été.
it's dangerous, that it's
Tout
unsafe,
ça là, ça
that
l'a pas été
that
grave.
number was
Moi, ce que
reduced
je
by
faisais,
half.
c'était
So then we went to
les gens
see
qui
those who were
continuent,
still
on
doing
fait
it.
de
And
l'éducation,
now we've done the
on les voit.
education part.
Maintenant que
We've
maintenant, ça
explained why.
fonctionne,
So now we
avec
say,
nous autres,
okay, now we're giving you a warning,
c'est un
a first
comportement
warning.
nouveau.
You cannot
Après ça, on l'a
continue
fait avec
on
les
doing
sports.
this.
Deux,
And then we give
deux
a
concepts
second
différents.
warning. We
On leur
say
dit
you
pas c'est
cannot
pas dans
continue with
l'éducation.
this behavior.
C'est
So
un
really that's
comportement
three behaviors
d'éducation.
in fact.
Puis après ça, là, parce
Then
qu'on est la
after
police,
that,
nous autres,
because we are the
on
police,
dit
I mean, we
oui,
don't have
on
any
arrête les
other tools
contraventions
other than to
sur la
issue a
vraiment le
fine.
quatrième,
So
c'est
that
la
would be the
prévention.
fourth
Puis là, après ça,
interaction. That would
cinquième,
be a
c'est
fine.
une date de
And then
comparution à la
after
cour.
that, it'll
So,
be a date
on
to
essaie
appear in
vraiment de
court.
faire de
That would
l'éducation,
be
de
the
la
fifth
prévention raisonnable avec les gens.
interaction. So we
Si le
really try to start
comportement
with education and
continue,
explain that it's unsafe, that it's illegal. But if that unsafe
peut-être apporter
behavior
un petit
continues, we have to give a fine.
probablement
Yes,
d'autres
but your
genres de
points are
solutions.
very good, and there's
C'est nous
probably
autres qui
other types of
sont
solutions possible with other
Tout
groups, but
simplement
this is
parce
what we
qu'il n'y a
do.
pas assez de
I
services dans la
find that
région
it's a
pour
shame that there
la
aren't
plupart des
sufficient
amis qu'on
services
avait posés
in
en
the
ligne.
area to help
C'est
these
sûr qu'on
people,
essaie juste d'en
because
vendre
those who are just trying
à
to
gros rendement,
raise money, I mean,
ça peut être dangereux
it's a
pour
area, it's a
leur
spot
survie
that is
aussi.
very dangerous,
C'est
dangerous to
donc
their own
plutôt,
health and safety, but
ouais, c'est ça, c'est dommage
it's
qu'il n'y ait
very
pas vraiment de
difficult. And
lien
it's
où
a
on peut
shame
donner
that
ce
there's
service-là.
no
Je vous dirais qu'il y a beaucoup de
link,
services
no
communautaires.
nothing else we
C'est
can
pas
do.
moi
Well,
qui
there are a
s'occupe
number of
de
community
ces
services available, but
services-là.
I'm not the
Il y a
one
beaucoup de services qui
who
font
is
vraiment du bien
responsible
aux
for them.
gens dans
But
notre
a lot
région.
of these
Je vous dirais
community
que les gens,
organizations
là,
do
ils vont
outreach,
essayer
hand try and
de
help them
jamais donner
to
ce type de service
bring
si
them
c'est
elsewhere to
pas
offer other
par la
services.
police.
But these are services that
Je
are
dirais
not
que
offered
votre
by the
domaine,
police
c'est
service.
ça.
For
Ce qu'on
me,
peut
this
faire,
is the
mais
way, this is
on
what we
essaie
can
de
do,
mieux
as I explained.
avoir
But
des
there are
services.
other outreach activities that are possible by other groups. Thank you.
L'autre chose aussi, c'est que
And
c'est dangereux, mais c'est
it's
payant.
dangerous, but it
Les policiers
also
retournent.
pays well, and that's why they go back.
Sans ça, ils ne seraient pas là.
So otherwise they wouldn't be there.
C'est une combinaison de facteurs quand
So,
même.
I mean, there are a number of factors that come into play.
Excusez-moi, Madame Turgeon-Roy.
Councillor
Merci,
Turgeon-Roy.
Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Je voulais simplement faire un petit kudos.
I just wanted
En
to
fait,
congratulate you,
cette
you and your
fin de semaine, j'ai
team.
reçu quelques appels
This
le
weekend, I
soir en
received a
soirée
number of
pour
calls
des
in the
situations qui s'est
evening
passées qui ne
because of
nécessitent pas,
situations that
nécessitaient pas le
took place
911.
that didn't require calling
J'ai
911, but I gave them the
eu
phone
des
number of
retours
the
par la suite
detachment,
disant
and I
qu'ils
got
avaient eu un
feedback
service
saying
exceptionnel
that
et
the
que, en fait,
service was
le
exceptional,
suivi avait
in
été fait et
French.
réglé aussi.
The
Donc,
situation
merci.
had been followed up on
Puis, ça
and
va être équipe.
taken care of. So thank you to
Merci
you
beaucoup.
and
Bonne
your
fin
team.
d'année.
Well, thank you for
Puis, je voulais
sharing.
remercier le
And
conseil
I'd like to
aussi
thank
des
you,
citoyens qui
Council, Council, every time you have citizens who call you, continue to encourage them to report it immediately. I can't stress that enough. The quicker we get the information, the better the chances of resolving the problem. Thank you. Councillor Lantaine. Thank you, Your Worship. My question is similar to Councillor Turgeon. I just wanted to mention that recently I have noticed a greater police presence in our neighborhood and on Amiro. I hope it's not just passing, but we're we we've been asking for greater visibility. I just wanted to point out that we have seen them, and citizens, others have told me that they've noticed a greater presence in spite of the fact that we don't have a greater number of officers. But thank you for that. Thank you. Well, thank you. And I can tell you that in part it's because we're focusing more on community policing. So I have some police officers who don't just respond to 911, they do proactive community service, and they can do traffic checks meanwhile. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you. Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to come back to something you said, Inspector. Now, in terms of the prevention or the education that you try to give to the panhandlers, one thing that we forget to say, and I will say it here this evening, the best prevention is the the people who actually give money can cause accidents. I've seen it. I've lived through it. We discussed it earlier because I sat on the Kodiak committee. But when you come up to a light and you're behind a number of cars and you see arms coming out giving money. So prevention works both ways. It works as much for the ordinary citizen, the driver, as for these people who are panhandling. Yes, yes, yes. These panhandlers. It's hard to say that word. Yes, you're quite right. And of course, we are generous and people want to help. But you're raising a good point. We have to find a way to help through community agencies that can distribute money more equitably, more fairly to different people in need. And that would be much safer as well, because they have the means to do so. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you once again for answering all of our complaints, and we really appreciate the feedback that we receive. It's very positive. Thank you once again. And you're welcome to stay as always, but of course we understand if your work calls you away. Questions by members of the public. Number 8. Questions by members of the public. I think we have one person here this evening, or two perhaps. Let's see. Gilles Chiasson. Good evening, Mr. Chiasson. I live on Boisé Street in Dieppe. I'm a fan, I'm even a fanatic of biking. Maybe there are others here in the room. I've used some of the bike trails here in Dieppe along the riverfront trail for a number of years now. But since last year, since April 2021, I bought an electric bike and it works great. But it's not the weather that controls me now. It's the I whatever I cross hills, raise hills, go down valleys. I use my bicycle and I get a lot of pleasure and satisfaction from it. And of course, health is very important. But the first objective of my comment here this evening is to tell you, to talk to you about safety on the trails, and more specifically on the maintenance of the surface of the trails. And I'm not talking about speed, I'm just talking about the actual surface of the trails. One of the staff members of the city, Mr. Leblanc, I believe, the person responsible for the trails, he told me that every 5 years, a new layer of gravel is put on the trails. The last time we did that was just last year, but that's the worst thing you can put on a bike trail. When you're on your bike If you take a spill and it doesn't take 3 inches of gravel, it takes very little gravel to take a spill and you lose your control, you can fall. And I've that happened to me last week, not because I wanted to fall, but it just happened that I passed someone, people who were walking. I had rang my bell, people moved over, but I just went around them very slowly and but I was on the gravel and it was on the side. I fell. I hurt my hand, my knee, but that's what happened. As well as being dangerous for cyclists, putting gravel down on the trails, well, for me, that's a waste of public money. Let me explain. If you go on a trail, you'll notice that there isn't a lot of gravel left in the middle of the trail because of the weather, because of the people who walk along it, because of the cyclists. That gravel is pushed over to the edges. And there might be 20, 15, 20 inches of gravel accumulated along the side. So when you pass somebody, and I'm not talking about going quickly, personally, I respect the letter of the law. If you pass somebody, when you pass somebody, if you end up in this thicker gravel and the wheels start shaking, you can fall. And that's what happened to me. So there's a lot of gravel on both sides, both edges of the trail, especially on the busiest parts of the trails, the ones that are the busiest. For example, the Dover Trail right up to Moncton along the Petitcodiac, mostly there. The other trails, there's still gravel that is more spread out throughout the trail, all over the trail. So, what I'm telling you here, what I'm trying to explain to you is not on behalf of anybody else, it's on my own behalf. I think if you ask the cyclists who use these trails what they think about what I just said, they will quickly tell you that that gravel is dangerous and causes falls. My second point, it's a suggestion, in fact. Perhaps I'm dreaming here, but I'm going to mention it anyhow. I think we should start thinking about paving our trails, to put a coat of asphalt down. I know that that costs a lot of money, but paving our trails should be considered an investment and not an expense. More and more, we see tourists looking for the best places to bike. The bike trails in the Acadian Peninsula, that I'm sure you've heard about them and maybe tried them out, they are becoming busier and busier because they're really nice and they're all paved. Here we have lovely trails. They're very nice. In terms of the environment, it's so picturesque. It's beautiful. When you start at Dover to go towards Moncton along the river, it's absolutely beautiful. Now, if we were to put down some asphalt, that would be an added value for me, and it would probably uh, help convince people to come to the region or to stay in the region. And it doesn't all have to be done the same year. That's not what I'm trying to say. I think it's a question of doing it progressively over a few years, and that would give us something that would be very, very nice. It's nice now, but it could be much nicer. I call that value added. Yeah. So it's up to you, ladies and gentlemen, to set your priorities and plan accordingly. It's a wonderful project. It's a great challenge for the next few years, isn't it? So that's my presentation. But I was on the trails this afternoon once again, and I just wanted to add something else. When you go through the march, starting at Amiro Street, starting at Amiro, there's the Babineau Brook. And did you know that there was what we call the Pont des Cochons, the Pont des Cochons, the Cochon Bridge? And it really struck me when I saw the sign. But there's some electricity poles there, and they're like this still. And I know they were replaced a year or two again ago. There was a storm, but they're really, really leaning over, and that's very dangerous. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is my presentation. Thank you, and I'm convinced that your comments will have been noted because and recorded because we are recording everything. So, thank you for your presentation, and I'm sure there will be discussions on this. It's not a new item. It comes up occasionally, and the opinions are 50-50 on this. Some people say, well, yeah, it would be really nice. It would be great to have them paved. And others say, well, everybody drives faster when it's paved. It's more dangerous when you fall. It really hurts. So, I mean, this is what we've been hearing for years now. So we'll see where we end up one year or another. But council will have to decide this and discuss it during the budget period that has already started, in fact, for staff that will be presented to City Council in November, I believe, on November 1st. Okay, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your presentation. Is there anybody else from the public? Please come forth, identify yourself. Good evening. My name is Louis Haché, and I'm in Ward 3, Marc Lantaine's ward. My question is this. I was listening to Inspector Farah and her report, and it's just a comment. I'm pleased to see the initiatives that have been taken to try and control excessive engine noise, and I hope that's going to continue on, but there's still a lot of work to do in that sense. But my question is this. I heard her speak earlier, and she was saying, well, if we had more resources, we could do more. And of course, I've read that, yes, the RCMP is asking for more resources to do more things, everything that we want them to do for us. But that said, the RCMP offers a service. There's a cost associated to that. We have an agreement with the RCMP. Are there any performance indicators in that agreement? Any performance indicators in that agreement with the RCMP to make sure that the city of Dieppe gets its money's worth? And these performance indicators, are they public? Can we see them? Can we find out which ones have been met? Councillor Godbout might be able to answer that question, or Councillor Brideau, because Mr. Brideau is back on the file, but more recently it was Councillor Godbout. And I'm sure she's going to tell you exactly how the procedure, how it works, and the agreement that we have with the CRPA, the Kodiak Regional Police Authority. Every year, certain things are done and implemented, but I will let them. Well, what interests me is organizational performance indicators, for example. For example, the first thing that comes to mind when we ask for more resources is what are your performance indicators related to uh, absences? And there are other operational performance indicators as well.
Now, since we're asking for more resources for the region, we've noticed recently that there are indicators that are there, but we're wondering if they are good, if they're the right indicators. So on the website we see, statistics and that type of thing. But what we're looking for collectively as a municipality is performance indicators that indicate performance, and and are we getting results in our areas of priority. So in the strategic review exercise, that's exactly what they have identified. We need to put these in place. We need to revisit those performance indicators. And we have a committee that is going to be identifying them, reviewing them, and maybe proposing others. And so I hope in a month or two, I will have something more specific that I can offer to you and to the council. So what the new performance indicators are, and are they really showing what we need? I agree, they have to be relevant and measurable as well. As the proverb goes, you can't manage what you don't measure. Well, it's kind of like that. Now, and you'll understand too that it's not easy to get those all the time. We have a dashboard, but the dashboard is only as good as the data that goes into it. But we need true indicators. So we're in a process and we're thinking about it right now. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Enjoy the rest of your eating. All right, anyone else? I see our communication students who are taking notes, and that's a good thing. And maybe we can speak to you about this after the meeting. So, all right. That brings us to item 10. Sorry, 9.1. Adoption of minutes for the regular council meeting held on October 11th, 2020. Do I have a motion to adopt the minutes? Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy. On the question. No questions. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries. The regular council meeting minutes of October 11th is accepted as presented. All right, 10.1 now. Request for exemption. Bylaw Z22. Mr. Melanson. Thank you, thank you, Your Worship. Here we have a request for the University of Moncton to be exempted from bylaw Z22. So when an entity as part of its mission requests that activity be in French or English, the council is authorized to grant a waiver to have unilingual signage. So the Université de Moncton is a French language teaching body, and they meet those conditions. So the recommendation is to authorize the waiver. All right, thank you. Who would like to read the resolution? Sorry, what? Ms. Leboutier, sorry about that. Go ahead. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorized Université de Moncton to proceed with unilingual Francophone external commercial signage until further notice. So proposed by Councillor Boutier, seconded by Councillor Godette. On the question. No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. The motion carries as presented. All right, that brings us to 10.2.1, tender award purchase of a dump truck chassis. Mr. Melanson. So we want to issue, we received one bid for this piece of equipment. This piece of equipment is part of our municipal fleet, and it's a replacement for 2023. So we felt that it would be good to order it as soon as possible so that we could get it by next fall, given the delays in the current market. So this is part of the equipment replacement program, and so it is recommended that Lounsbury Heavy Duty Truck Limited receive a cost of $179,000 and 520 cents. No, $179,520 plus HST, and that's for the vehicle in itself. Who would like to read the resolution? Mr. Bridon, please. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council award the contract for the purchase of a dump truck chassis for the Operations Department to Lounsbury Heavy Duty Truck Limited at the cost of $179,520 plus HST, pursuant to its proposal dated on October 4th, 2022, and authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from the following 2023 budget accounts: 65% of the cost from account number 3-3-20-12-7901, General Capital Budget, General Equipment Purchase, PW. 20% of the cost from account number 4-3-90-12-7902, Water and Sewer Capital Budget, Equipment Purchase, Water. And 15% of the cost from account number 4-3-95-12-7901, Water and Sewer Capital Budget, Equipment Purchase, Sewer. So proposed. So moved, rather. Moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Lanting on the question. On the question, Ms. Leboutier. Thank you. I just want to understand. There's no detail in the background. So why in this case is 20% and 15% take? Why the breakdown of costs? Mr. Thériault, you are online. Could you answer that question for us, please? Yes, Your Worship and members of the Council. Essentially, Mr. Leboutier, when we're talking about public works, there is a percentage. Just the same thing applies to employees and salaries as well. There's a breakdown of 65, 25, and 10. So it's just to indicate what budget these amounts are coming from. Okay, so that's a standard way of dividing the percentages? Yes, it will be based on use, and this equipment will also be used for the water and sewer system. Right. Ms. Boudreau. I had this exact same question. All right, thank you. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. My question is this. So it was said that the offers or the bids were looked at in, was there only one bid received? Yes, as I indicated in my summary, there was just one bid received. Yes, okay, thank you. Councillor Godbout. Yes, I just want to specify, we're talking about repair costs in the last 2 years. Is the amount indicated on my sheet correct, Mr. Bourque? Yes. Now you're talking about the repair costs, $51,000 for the last 2 years for that piece of equipment. Okay, well, there's a zero missing. There was a difference, and I thought, well, $5,000 is not really a big amount, but if it's 51,000, then that's a bigger amount. Thank you. No further questions. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. The motion carries as presented. 10.2.2 now. tender award purchase of a wheel loader. This is to acquire a piece of equipment that is part of the municipal fleet. So an RFP was launched, and we had a number of bids received. And following our analysis, we decided to go with Brandt Tractor Limited for the cost of $418,750 plus HST. So we want to buy this equipment, and because of the delays, in the delivery of this equipment, we need to order early. Thank you. All right, Councillor Thibodeau, would you read the resolution, please? That council award the contract for the purchase of a wheel loader with snow removal equipment for the operations department to Brandt Tractor Limited at the cost of $418,750 plus HST, pursuant to its proposal dated October 4th, 2022, and authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from the following 2023 budget account number 3-3-20-12-7901, General Capital Budget, General Equipment Purchase, PW, Public Works. So moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy on the question. Ms. Godbout. Thank you. No, I'm not looking for the details, but I always wonder. I know that the cost is only 20% of the points given when you're evaluating a bid. But my question at the end of the day is, was there a big difference in terms of prices between the second bidder and the first that was chosen? And I'm not talking about amounts, but was there a big difference between the amounts? Well, it always varies. I would say that the difference was maybe not as big as what you might expect for this amount. We're talking about a piece of equipment that's worth more than $400,000. So I would say there wasn't a huge difference given the type of equipment we're talking about. But when we're looking at the evaluation of a bid, there's a number of factors. So, depending on the specifications that we ask for, we total up the number of points. But consider the equipment, the difference in pricing was not huge. Thank you. All right, any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, saying nay. The motion carries as presented. 10.3, Planning and Development, 10.3.1, PAC recommendation. Mr. Melançon. There was a change that was made to the zoning plan on Chartersville Road, Murray Avenue, and Bouchard Street. So the recommendation is to go ahead with the recommendation. And so we're asking for approval for that. And we're going to proceed with the first and second readings. We would like to proceed with the first and second readings of bylaw Z10. All right, Councillor, who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council accept the recommendation made on October 19th, 2022 by the Planning Advisory Committee pertaining to an amendment to the zoning map as outlined in bylaw Z10 2021-5 relating to the lands identified under PIDs 704-05436, 706-16636, a portion, and 706-56657. And that Council proceed with the first and second readings of bylaw Z10 2021-5. So moved. Moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Brideau on the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So the first reading, we're going to proceed to the reading now. So the recommendation is are accepted, and we will now proceed with the reading of the bylaw. 11.1.1, first reading by title only. Councillor Turgeon-Roy, thank you. So bylaw number Z10 2021-5, bylaw to amend the City of Dieppe zoning bylaw. So moved in first reading by title only. All right, moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Leboutier. On the question? No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. So bylaw number Z10 2021-5 is accepted at first reading, and now we will proceed with the second reading by title only. Councillor Turgeon-Roy. So bylaw number Z-10 2021-5, bylaw to amend the City of Dieppe zoning bylaw. So moved in second reading by title only. All right, moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Leboutier. On the question? No questions. The bylaw number Z10 2021-5 is accepted or passes second reading by title only. Thank you. All right, point number 12, notice of motion. Did we receive any notices of motion? Nothing? All right. Item 13, inquiries and announcements by members of council. And we will start with Councillor Gaudette. Thank you, Your Worship. Just a few things. I just wanted to mention for people driving on the roads to respect that 1 meter distance between cyclists and vehicles. And a second thing is for information, the Santa Claus Challenge will be in the month of November, and the interpreter missed the date. When is the Santa Claus Parade again? 26th of November at 8 o'clock. All right, Santa's coming to town. Thank you very much. Councillor Leboutier. Thank you. Nothing for me, Your Worship. Councillor Boudreau. Thank you, Your Worship. I have a few questions. My first one is this. I was at the art center in the lobby. I was just waiting for my students. And it turned out that that evening, there was an activity in the library. And during the 30 minutes that I was there was 20 people who came by asking if the library was there. They had parked at place 1604. And so I was wondering, would it not be a good idea, for people who are parking on that side and, you can't see the library or where it is, would it not be a good idea to put up a poster or a sign saying, okay, the library is in the city hall, there's an access ramp for wheelchairs, and then on the other side as well? Because I went to the library after, and the director said that the same thing happened. People who come to the library don't know where the art center is. So maybe on the street side, it's clear there's a very visible wall, but when you're parked on the other side, it might be, all you see is kind of big buildings and it's not very visible. So especially for people coming from outside the city. So maybe consider signage for that, for pedestrians. My second question. Now, are we going to have a presentation on the tree code? Yes, Your Worship. Yes, we are planning to have a formal presentation on November 24th to the so there will be a
Façon de l'avoir.
presentation,
Les commentaires reçus et partagés.
and we will be talking about the comments and feedback that we received. So there will be a presentation, yes.
Petit message, j'étais au Salon du Livre.
Okay, I was at the Salon du Livre and
Donner mes
the book
félicitations
fair, and I just wanted to congratulate the organizers.
le 23 octobre.
The book fair was held from October 20th to 23, and I was there to buy books and to take in some of the talks. And there was about 600 or 6,000 visitors that came, so that was a great success. And I really enjoyed the event. Last Monday, I was the International Walk for the Eradication of Poverty. And there was a lot of people that turned out. There was a presentation by Senator Nancy Harding, who I didn't know, but I was happy to hear her story and what she's done in the community and in her life. And there was also a young woman who talked about her experience of poverty, and now she has her own business. I also attended the Fire Prevention Week at the station on Gauvin Street on October 15th, and that was a huge success as well. A lot of families were there, and I'm sure that it was a very popular event. So congratulations to the team, and congratulations, and I wish everybody a great week. All right, we have you took exactly 4 minutes, so perfect timing. Councillor Brideau, thank you, Your Worship. I just want to remind people that next weekend, next Monday, the 21st, or 31st rather, is Halloween. So be careful and make sure that for our young people, for people who are driving on the secondary routes, be careful and have a great Halloween. Thank you, Councillor Brideau. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to add a detail regarding Halloween. Young people can only do trick-or-treating until 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. For safety reasons, of course. I would also like to congratulate the Salon du Livre, the book fair. I went there twice, and there was a lot of people there, and they sold a lot of books as well. So those who bought books, I'm happy reading. So that's all for me. Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. I just have one small thing. There are a few councillors and the mayor participated in the Association francophone des municipalités du New-Brunswick. And on 2 occasions this evening, we mentioned, the Motor Vehicle Act and excessive noise and the numerous the complaints that we've been received in the past few years. So I just wanted to point out that at the AGM, the mayor proposed the following resolution. And in order to have support from the Association of Francophone Municipalities, so he asked for support in helping us change the Motor Vehicle Act. And we saw that the issue is an issue in many communities around the province. And there was unanimous support that the Francophone Association is supportive of our efforts. So we're going to go now to the Department of Public Safety and to help our police forces in their duties. That's all for me. Have a good weekend. Councillor Godbout. All right, so I just wanted to point out the return of Country Fest next week. It's great to see that activity is coming back in in our community. And I've seen the list of artists that are going to be performing. And there's an effort to incorporate Francophone artists this year, and we're excited to see that. Now, also at the FNB, it was interesting. You know, we talked about having the importance of inspiring, not just leading people. And now the city of Dieppe, you know, inspires other communities with its bilingual signage. And it was interesting to see how the work that we've done in the past is having an impact today. And so I hope that our future tree code will have the same effect. So the work that we're doing now might inspire other communities to do the same. So in terms of Halloween, just for the benefit of people, could we just clarify the instructions? I know that the trick or treating has to end at 8, but what are the well, historically, young people start trick or treating after class around supper time. And so there's no, you know, specific instruction as to the time that they begin, but they can't go beyond 8 p.m. And it's a safety issue. And we also want people to know when trick-or-treating is over. So they can go until 8 p.m. on October 31st. All right, well, there was the CRPA that had a number of meetings. There was also the reorganization of police. And it'll be interesting to see the performance indicators to make sure that public funds are well used and that we can look at all of that. Thank you, Councillor Lantang. Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to follow up. I had talked about a pedestrian crossing on Avant-Garde, that linking the bike trails on each side, and it was near a children's park as well. And we had talked about that was going to be looked into. Was there any follow-up done on that? Councillor Lantang, we noted it, and if there are any changes, it'll be for 2023. So staff will do an assessment because there are other places that we have to look at. There are other playgrounds and parks. So if there are changes, we will let you know right at the beginning of next year. All right, thank you. That's all for me. Have a good evening. All right, I had the opportunity to represent, among other things. Sometimes things are more, there are funner things to do than others, but it's always a pleasure for me to represent our municipality throughout the region. But specifically, last week, the Dieppe was named a host city for the Jeux de l'Acadie game finals in 2025. I think this is the third time or it'll be the 55th Acadian Games. And Mayor Lapierre, now this will be the second. I think we haven't always been able to host the games, but sometimes you just have to wait your turn. So now that the pandemic is less an issue this year, we hope that our young people will be able to take advantage of this over the next 3 years. Next year, the games will be in Memram Cook. And then after that, in 2024, it'll be Bouctouche. And then 2025, it'll be here in Dieppe. So it's a great opportunity for all young Acadians from all the Maritime region, and it'll be an opportunity for them to discover the beautiful city of Dieppe. So have a good weekend, everybody, and we'll see you